Why did a $34 billion hydrogen truck company suddenly vanish into a corporate disaster after being hailed as the next Tesla? Today we are analyzing the Nikola Motors collapse to see exactly where the engineering blueprints and the hydrogen fuel cell technology fell apart. By the end of this investigation, you will understand the gravity propulsion trap, a trick so simple it fooled the world's biggest automotive experts, and I will reveal the specific blueprint error in the Nikola One prototype that was hidden by nothing more than a few pieces of black tape and a rolling hill. Most people think this was a complex technological failure. They're wrong. It wasn't a failure of technology because for a long time there was no technology to fail. It was a failure of human ego and a masterclass in forensic deception. If you are fascinated by the hidden flaws in massive infrastructure and the high-stakes analysis of where the math goes wrong, you are in the right place. Subscribe, because every collapsed legacy leaves a blueprint, and we're here to decode it. I've always been fascinated by how a single lie about a motor can bring down a mountain of investor capital. Once you understand the physics of the in-motion video, the $34 billion disaster starts to make total sense. To understand the collapse, we have to look at the engineering fundamentals of a hydrogen fuel cell vehicle. Think of a hydrogen truck as a moving chemical plant. You take compressed hydrogen gas, pass it through a fuel cell stack where it reacts with oxygen to create electricity, and that electricity powers a motor. The only exhaust is pure water. From a physics standpoint, it is a beautiful solution to the weight problem of batteries in long-haul trucking. But the math of Nikola Motors was anchored in a prototype that lacked the one thing a truck needs to be a truck: a powertrain. Imagine a world-class auditorium filled with investors, lights flashing, and a revolutionary semi-truck sitting center stage. Let's look at the actual blueprints of that night in 2016. Trevor Milton, the founder, told the world the Nikola One was a fully functioning vehicle. He even pointed to the word hydrogen on the side. But here is the most terrifying detail the engineers realized behind the scenes. The truck was a glider. In the world of trucking, a glider is a shell with no engine, no gears, and no motors. Watch what happens to the internal rebar of corporate trust when you realize the screens inside the truck weren't powered by a revolutionary hydrogen system, but a hidden cable plugged into the wall of the building. The engineers literally taped parts together to make the truck look complete for the cameras. According to the forensic reports that emerged later, the in-motion video, the one that convinced General Motors to sign a $2 billion deal, was the ultimate engineering disaster. This is where the physics falls apart. To show that the truck worked, they filmed it driving down a long two-lane road in the desert. But the truck wasn't driving. The team had towed the shell to the top of a 3-degree incline and simply let go of the brakes. They filmed it rolling down the hill and then tilted the camera angle to make the road look flat. They even sped up the footage to make it look like the truck was cruising at highway speeds under its own power. From a physics standpoint, they were using gravity as their fuel source. This is the lateral pressure of a lie that eventually snaps the foundation of a company. Here's what most people get wrong about this disaster. Men over 30 who love uncovering the real truth should look at the General Motors deal. The myth is that GM was tricked because they were incompetent. The reality is that GM was desperate. They saw Tesla's stock price skyrocketing and felt the immense pressure to have a green victory. They did a due diligence check, but they were looking at the spreadsheets, not the actual gearboxes. The autopsy of the disaster showed that Nikola didn't even own the technology they claimed to have. Trevor Milton had claimed they were producing hydrogen at a fraction of the market cost, but the blueprints for these hydrogen stations didn't exist. They hadn't even broken ground on a single one. Let's look at the actual blueprints of the Nikola Badger, the pickup truck that was supposed to destroy the Ford F-150 Lightning and the Tesla Cybertruck. Nikola promised it would have a 900-mile range using a hybrid battery hydrogen system. But when General Motors looked under the hood during the final negotiations, they realized there was no Nikola technology inside. The plan was simply to take a GM truck, put a Nikola body on top of it, and sell it back to the public at a premium. This is where the engineering reasoning turns into pure fiction. You cannot build a billion-dollar brand by being a body kit company for your competitors. The hubris was thinking that the brand was worth more than the physics. Most people don't realize the physics at play when we talk about hydrogen storage. To keep enough hydrogen on a truck for a long-haul trip, you have to compress it to 10,000 pounds per square inch. This requires specialized carbon fiber tanks and incredibly complex cooling systems. In the Nikola One prototype, there were no tanks. There was no cooling system. There was just an empty space where the innovation was supposed to be. The autopsy of the disaster revealed that when the truck was on stage, the hydrogen label was literally covering a gaping hole in the chassis. This is not a hairline fracture in a business plan. This is a total structural collapse of ethics. The real-world application of this failure is a warning to the entire green tech sector. If you look at the landscape of 2026, we see dozens of startups making bold claims about solid-state batteries or fusion energy. The reason the Nikola disaster matters is that it proves that in the age of digital rendering, you can create a cinematic forensic realism of a product that doesn't exist. You can make a CGI truck look like it's changing the world, while the real-world math is at a 0% state of charge. The gravity propulsion trick worked on the stock market for years because people wanted to believe in the miracle more than they wanted to check the blueprints. This creates a massive retention spike in the sunk cost psychology. By the time the Hindenburg Research report came out, the short seller report that finally exposed the rolling down the hill video, thousands of retail investors had anchored their life savings into Nikola. They ignored the warning signs because they were already emotionally invested in the Tesla killer. But here is the most terrifying detail. Even after the fraud was exposed, Nikola's stock didn't hit zero immediately. The company attempted to pivot, firing Trevor Milton and trying to build an actual truck using parts from an Italian manufacturer called Iveco. But the damage to the foundation was done. You can't rebuild a skyscraper of trust on a foundation of fake videos. The reason this $34 billion project collapsed comes down to three things: a total lack of proprietary technology, a management ego that prioritized hype over hardware, and a fundamental deception regarding the basic laws of motion. Trevor Milton was eventually convicted of wire and securities fraud, a rare moment of legal forensic accountability in the tech world. The autopsy of his defense was that he was just dreaming big, but in engineering, a dream without a motor is just a paperweight. So the takeaway is simple. The Nikola truck didn't fail because hydrogen is a bad idea. Hydrogen is a fascinating, viable fuel source that many companies are currently using successfully. The truck failed because the blueprint was a movie script, not an engineering document. They spent billions trying to manifest a reality that they hadn't even begun to calculate. The ghost trucks of Nikola's early days are now a case study in every business school and engineering college in the world. If you look at modern infrastructure being built right now, you see the Nikola shadow. Investors are now much more skeptical of PowerPoint engineering. The reason this matters today is that we are in the middle of a massive energy transition. We need real solutions, not mirrored mirages. If we spend our capital on companies that roll trucks down hills, we lose the time we need to build the structures that actually stand. The lateral pressure of climate change and economic competition means we no longer have a margin for error for $30 billion lies. If you learned something new from this investigation into the blueprints of corporate deception, subscribe. Next, we're breaking down why the Theranos of the high-speed rail industry, a billion-dollar project in California, has spent 15 years and billions of dollars without laying a single mile of usable track. The blueprint error in their geological assessment will absolutely shock you. From a physics standpoint, a train that doesn't move is just a very expensive park, and we are going to look at exactly where the math falls apart. Every collapsed structure, whether it's a physical bridge or a multi-billion-dollar startup, leaves a blueprint for us to study. We are here to decode the flaws so we can build a future that actually moves under its own power. I'll see you in the next investigation.